So next up, we're going to learn how to be able to break down any redundant code that we have in our template into pieces of reusable code so that we only have to make an edit once instead of having to edit the same thing 5 times. So if you have the same navigation bar on your website, for instance, and you got 5 pages and you wanted to change the name of something in your navigation bar, you'd have to change it 5 times if you just went with static HTML. But we can actually use a coding language called PHP, among others. That's the one that we're going to explore for this module, to be able to break that down into more reusable pieces of code. So if you modularize your code, in other words, so that you'd be able to reuse it wherever you need it, update it once, and have that update reflect everywhere that you're using it. And in order to do that, we need a testing server on our computer, and the reason for that is that most computers out of the box do not run PHP. So your student space does, but you would have to publish your files every single time you wanted to check something, and that starts to be a time drain. So we're going to learn how to install a local development stack on our computer so that we can develop locally and see the changes as though it was really a web server that we were working on without having to take the time to publish to a web server. Now there are a lot of choices out there, guys. The most famous ones right now are XAMPP, MAMP, and WAMP. But I'm going to show you how to install a new one, and the reason for that is that it's so much simpler to install, and it also looks a whole lot more like what you would see on a live web host. So this is the one we're going to try. This one's called AAMPPS. And you can see it has a built-in FTP server. It also has a lot of additional languages and things that we're not going to use here, but it's a great thing to look into. Let's start by downloading it and choose the version that you need. In my case, I'm working on a Mac, so I'm going to download the Mac version, but if you're a PC user, go ahead and download that. And we'll just put this in our downloads folder. Move this up so we can see the progress. So this says we've got 3 minutes left to download this. So I'm going to pause the video and let that happen so that we're not just wasting time. I'll be right back when it's done. Okay, and we're back. So we have AAMPPS downloaded, so I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and we're going to install it. It's just going to verify it, unpack the software, just like anything else that you install. And the Mac installation is pretty simple, so we're just going to drag it and drop it to our applications folder and let it install. So we've got a good bit of space to take up here. I'm going to go ahead and pause it. Nope, never mind. Looks like it's moving pretty quickly, so we won't worry about a pause. Well, maybe we will. And so now the package is installed, we can take a look at it and see what we've got. Let's go ahead and look in the applications folder and find AAMPPS. There it is. And we're going to go ahead and run the program. And what you can't see is it's launching in the dock on my computer, so everything's just starting to work. It's taking it a little bit. There we go. So what do we have here? Well, we've got a stack of Apache, MySQL, PHP, FTP, and Mongo database. The only thing we're really using this for, by the way, for our purposes is PHP. But we can take a look at how they're all configured, change our versions. So this is pretty useful, but what we're going to do right now is go ahead and click the Home button. You can see that it's not working because we're not running it, but localhost here is going to be important to us in just a minute. So let's go back to the software and let's start Apache. Now it's going to ask me for my password for the computer so that I can start Apache running. So I'm going to go ahead and give it my administrative password. And I'm also going to start MySQL just so everything's running appropriately. And now we'll go back to this Home button. And you'll see that at localhost now we have what looks to be a web server running here. So this is going to be really useful to you as you're building. I know that this doesn't seem like much, and what we've just done doesn't seem like much, but you are going to want to use this so that you can work with PHP locally on your computer. Another thing you're going to want to do is secure your application. So you notice here we have the option to secure AAMPPS and to change the MySQL password. You're going to want to do both of those things to make sure that your installation is secure. So it's going to ask me if I want it to be secured. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to give it a password that I can remember. And when I click submit, that's going to update it. The next thing I'd like for you to do is go ahead and take a screenshot of that so that I can see that you have secured it. I want to see the local host in your URL, and I also want to see that your password was set successfully there. And then let's go back home and let's take a look at change MySQL password. This is for your database. So it's telling you the default root password is MySQL. So we're going to say MySQL as the default root password, and then we're going to change that to something that we know. And we're going to change that. And I want you to go ahead and take another screenshot of that that shows me again localhost in the bar, as well as that you've changed your password. This lets me know that you've set everything up securely. So that's going to be our next step. And then the last thing that we should be able to do is go ahead and route this to our local HTML folder so that we're using that as our localhost folder. So if you've never used a local stack, something that you should note is that each one comes with a place to keep websites. So within your AAMPPS folder, this www folder would be a place that you could keep websites. So you could move your local HTML folder into that if you wanted to, but one of the nice things about AAMPPS is that you don't have to. You could actually map to the folder where it is. So in my case, I keep that folder within a CPCC folder for myself, my local HTML. So what I want to do instead is actually use an alias manager, and I'm going to set up an alias. I'm going to click Add New, and you can see that it's saying that after you add this, you should be able to access localhost your site. So why don't we this time call it, instead of your site, it's telling you to give it a name, so why don't we call that Web 140, or you could call it Project 2 if that's where you're going to want to go the most often. And then we're going to give the path to it, and the correct path is not this one. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and find your local HTML folder. In my case, I keep mine in a CPCC folder, and I can right-click, and from there I can choose Get Info, and that's going to tell me what the path is. So you can see that the path for that is actually right there. And so I'm going to copy that path, and I'm going to come back to AAMPPS, and I'm going to put it in right here. And in this case, I actually want to go to local HTML, and then the last thing that I want to do is go to my Web 140 folder. So I want to type in that complete path that's going to take me all the way to local HTML and Web 140, because that's what I've set up my alias to. So then when I create my alias, it's going to ask me to authenticate again, so I'm going to do that. Just type in your password, and then you can see that it says the alias was created successfully. So what did we just do? Well, we've created a local server on our computer. So now that we've created that alias, if we move to a new browser and we go to localhost, you can see we've got localhost running, and what was in the folder that was in the AAMPPS folder, the www folder, is what we're seeing here. But we just created an alias to take me directly to my Web 140 folder. So if I type in Web 140, then you're going to see the contents of your local HTML Web 140 folder, and hopefully by now you should have something that looks a lot like this. So the last thing I want you to do for your deliverables here is to navigate to your Project 2 folder and go ahead and open up. Now you won't have the PHP stuff yet, but you're going to need to build that as we go. Go ahead and open up your finished template and show me what you have there. So you can see here I've got one working from our demo sections. We can see how that looks. So The last thing I want is a picture of your template, but I also want to see the address bar, and I want to see localhost web 140 and see that you have created your alias to get there using AAMPPS. So the last thing you're going to need to note to use this software is that you're going to need to start it and stop it every time that you use it and finish using it. So the first thing you're going to do is launch the application, and you're either going to start or stop both Apache and MySQL, just depending on where you are in your workflow. Since I'm done working on it, I'm going to go ahead and stop using it now. But starting it is just as easy as stopping it was. And same thing with MySQL. Go ahead and run a stop command, and the next time you're going to want to use this, you're going to want to go ahead and start them. But you don't want to keep them running in the background all the time, only when you're working on your websites. So anyway, hopefully this has been helpful to you. I know it's still a little bit new, but you should learn how to use it as you go, and you will find that AAMPPS has a lot of good applications that come out of box with it as you start to build in your development skills. It also has really good support. So when you get to the support section, or if you get to where you need support, you'll just want to visit their wiki page. And the way that you get to that is by going to AAMPPS.com and then going to their documentation section, or docs. It's going to take you to a wiki website that lets you know what it is and also answer some questions. So you'll notice here we've got installation and usage for both Windows and for Mac. You also get a little bit of help with support, with admin, installs, and even how-tos. So if you need any help with this further than what I've given you, make sure to check out their support page as well. But hopefully it's been helpful to you, and hopefully you are now ready to start building a template that you can break down into modular code using PHP. Best wishes with it.